Welcome back everyone, and we've got some great news. The tracks of a male leopard around Arathusa Dam was in fact Tingana, and he's been found. He's just ahead of us. We're just arriving, and it looks like and sounds like he's fast asleep. And we're just going to stop right here actually, and if Andrew points the camera directly over my fingers, you'll notice the characteristic spots of the leopard. You'll also notice how well camouflaged he is. Now, he's apparently been lying down here for about 10 or 15 minutes. It's impossible to say how long he will stay here for, but I'm certainly looking forward to spending some time with him. He's a beautiful big male leopard, and in a few moments we will try and reposition the vehicle. I'm looking around and he's basically surrounded by a wall of grass, making it difficult to see him regardless of which angle you're looking at. But I've got a feeling he may get up soon, and that'll be great if we can see him on the move. As Andrew zooms out, you'll understand how easy it is to drive past these animals without even knowing they're here, even if they are just meters off the road. Now, it could have been his tracks that we had around the airstrip. Leopards can move large distances in the night, and it's actually not too far from the airstrip to here, probably a mile as the crow flies. And it could well have been his footprints that we saw. They were heading in this general direction, but with the amounts of leopard movements and slight changes of territory that we've been noticing over the last few months, it could have been another male. Tingana, which is the name of this leopard we are looking at, is the dominant male of the Arathusa property and surroundings, and Mvula is the dominant male of Djuma further to the east, but it appears that Tingana could be pushing further east into Mvula's territory. I'm just going to try and reposition the vehicle now just to allow another vehicle a decent spot. Oh, look. And we'll see if we don't get a slightly better angle from where we are here. Very good, Lee, very good. Well, that's definitely a little bit better. And what an awesome angle, the way you can see all the spots running along his spine up to that massive neck and shoulders of his. They're incredibly powerful animals, leopards, and this male could weigh anywhere from 80 to 90 kilograms, I'm guessing. Just to give you an idea of their size, but their power is immense, and they're often said to be one of the strongest cats, pound for pound. Well, he's definitely heard something. It could be something small like a rodent rustling in the grass, or who knows actually, but something has got his attention, and aren't we lucky we've been here just a few minutes and he's already showing signs of getting up. Now, while he peers into the grass looking at something that he could potentially pounce on. I'm going to answer Michelle's question. Michelle sent a question all the way from Oklahoma, and Michelle would like to know if and when will we see another kill. We used to see more, and I think in the last 7 months we've seen about 5 different kills, some made by lion, others by wild dog, and a few from leopard. Just one from leopard actually, I think, which was Karula catching a baby impala. But yes, there certainly is a chance of us seeing another kill. When and where, I cannot tell you, sadly, Michelle. But we've been waiting a long time, and I think we are due for a kill in any of these up-and-coming drives. It could happen at any stage. A lot of the time, kills are made when we are not around, sadly, often at night. But we spend hours out here every day, and I'm convinced we're going to get lucky at some point. It's just a matter of time. Now, what is he going to do next? He's let off 1 or 2 yawns, which is always a good sign. But it appears like he may simply be repositioning himself. He peered up there briefly, and I also looked up into the sky to see what it was he could have been looking at. Sometimes they will look at birds like vultures and use them as indicators to where there could be an easy meal. I'm wondering if I can't go around and try and get a slightly different angle for you. Should I try go around, or?
Why, if you want to go around. I was going to go around.
Perfect. So I was just trying to coordinate with the other guides. There's 3 vehicles in the sighting, and that's the maximum that is allowed in any sighting. And just like we were chatting about earlier about traversing agreements, this is another rule that for me makes perfect sense. We don't have too many vehicles in any one sighting. It would put too much pressure on the animals, and we would have too much of an impact on what's going on. But with 3 vehicles managed correctly, it should be fine. And
because he was lying all the time.
He was lying there the whole time.
One of the protocols when in a sighting like this with 3 vehicles is that if the animal is stationary, for only 1 vehicle to move at a time. And I was just asking Jason whether he wanted to go around to another angle or if I should, and he's decided to maneuver around. So that's the vehicle you can hear at the moment. Good morning, Lauren, and thanks for sending your question through. Lauren would like to know who is bigger out of Tingana and Mvula. It's hard to say. I personally think Tingana is a little bit bigger, but unless we were to put them on a scale, we will only be able to debate as to who we think is the biggest.
Is that on our indemnity form?
But good question. It's sadly something that doesn't very often happen, that the leopards get weighed, and I've actually never seen or been around any leopard being weighed, so it makes it very difficult for me to guess or gauge different weights and sizes of leopard, because I've got nothing really to go on other than what textbooks say in terms of general size. But size can vary greatly between males and even females, males ranging from anywhere between 70 to 100 kilograms.
At the same time.
and females as small as 25 kilograms. And isn't that incredible? As Andrew zooms out, he just dissolves into the surrounding vegetation. And aren't we lucky to be here on Arethusa this morning? We're not far from Arethusa Dam, probably about half a mile as the crow flies. And this is Tingana, the dominant male of the area. He did sit up very briefly earlier and seemed to have heard something rustling in the grass nearby.
Well, I mean,
they're
both solitary.
Difficult to tell what it was, and after a short moments of him being very focused on whatever it was, he decided to have a stretch, reposition himself, and continue his lazy morning basking in the morning sun.
Multiple males. The reason why they do that is so that the males make
Morning, Molly. And Molly sent through her message on Twitter. If any of you would like to do the same, it's quite simple. You just hashtag Safari Live. Molly's heard that another dominant male leopard called the Anderson male is pushing Tingana further east. So Anderson male occurs to the south and west of here, and to the west of where we are here on Arethusa. I've never seen him, but he's pushing into Tingana's territory and apparently pushing Tingana deeper into Mvula's territory. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to ask Louis, one of the guides who does spend more time in these parts and has been here for many years, if he knows a little bit more about the Anderson male, and then I'll let you know a bit more about that, Molly. Louis? What's the story? Have people seen any interactions or?
Yeah, they've been coming together quite a few times, but no real boxing matches. They just kind of walk parallel with one another, size one another up, growling with one another, but no fighting.
Really, eh?
He is pushing up in this area.
And do you think, and is Anderson bigger than him? Or?
No.
Okay.
Younger,
okay.
Less experienced, so he's still giving him a little bit of uphill. So Anderson will back off because of Tingana having more experience.
Okay.
It's just a matter of time that they'll...
And what's the age differences there? Do you know?
About a year and a half or 2 years difference.
Okay.
Anderson is Nsakwem's son. Nsakwem used to come in from Mala London side.
Okay.
And he's the...
And how old is the Anderson male roughly?
He should be about 8.
Okay.
7, 8.
Okay, thanks very much, Louis. Well, I'm not sure if you heard what Louis was saying, but it was really interesting. He has said that there have been quite a few sightings of Tingana and the Anderson male together, walking parallel with one another, basically sizing one another up. And that's quite often the case in nature. Before animals will come to blows, they will try and establish who is dominant by visual performances rather than physical performances. And the few times that they have been seen together, even though the Anderson male, who's a year and a half or so younger than Tingana, apparently around 7 years old roughly, even though he's younger and a bit more bold, he lacks the experience of Tingana. So it's hard to say what will happen, but it appears that the up-and-coming Anderson male is going to start putting a bit more pressure on Tingana. But for now, there have been no fights. It may come to blows eventually, but like I say, animals will try and avoid confrontation with other animals or humans at all costs. Unlike us, they don't have medical aid, and hospitals to go to. So if they get injured, they know it could be the end of their career. That is the beauty of being out here, though, even though we do know quite a lot about these leopards, especially relative to other leopards in Africa that aren't nearly as relaxed with humans as these leopards are. And because we do get to spend so much time with them, we've got great insight into their lives. But even still, there is so much that we miss. So much happens when we are not around, under cover of darkness, that the few pieces of the puzzle that we have often don't make a clear picture of exactly what's going on. And we often have to play a bit of guesswork into looking into their lives and what we think's going on with their territories and their movements. The only way to find out is to wait and see. And each drive and every drive we go on, there's the potential of great things happening and learning more about the habits and lives of these animals. Well, the sun really is warming up now. I'm about to take my jacket off, and that leopard's got a thick coat of fur on it, so he too might think about not taking his jacket off, but at least moving into some shade. But the shade, sadly, is not very far away from him, so he's not going to have to move far. But I'm expecting he could move fairly shortly.
Kop 'n bietjie gedraai, so jy kan 'n bietjie beter sien. Maar hy lê nog. He should be about 9 years old. They can go to about between 12 to 16, and then the oldest female we've had in this area was about 19 years old. She also only had one eye. She was a legend. The
way he's looking around and has his head up, I'm again fairly confident that he is going to get up and move for us shortly, so don't go anywhere. There he goes. What has he heard? That is not him just getting up to move. That is him getting up because he's heard something. And you can tell by his body language that there's something over there that's caught his attention. Well, I'm going to just try and reposition the vehicle slightly. He's continuing to move off there. And we will have to move the vehicle now, though. Let's see what he's up to. Louis, thanks very much.
No worries.
Where's he going? Now, with 3 vehicles here, it is going to make it a little bit tricky, but there's a brief glimpse we're going to get of him now in the gap behind this vehicle. He's just sitting up looking in our direction. I wonder what it is that he's heard, but it's beautiful morning sunlight, and that right there is a perfect example of an absolutely awesome male leopard. He's got a huge neck and shoulders, and we're so lucky to be seeing him right now. Well, good morning, Billy Joe in Florida. Billy Joe would like to know, why is the Anderson male called the Anderson male, and who would have named him that, and will his name change? The naming of animals is always a large debate as to what animals should be named and who should name them. It's something that I try and avoid where possible because of the confusion that it causes. Because there are many different lodges that may all see the same leopard, as a leopard's territory may traverse large territories overlapping different lodges. You may find one lodge gives one leopard a name and another lodge gives that same leopard another name. They are usually names related to either habits of the animal, if they are shy or playful or aggressive, or of territories or roads or places where they spend time. Now I'm guessing there could be a dam or an area called the Anderson Dam or Anderson Road where that leopard may have spent time, but I'm not too sure of why he was called that. And it's something also to bear in mind. We have named Shadow's cub Sindile, but that is just us and you, the WildEarth family, and it's essentially going to be up to the Arathusa and Juma guides to decide on a name for that 8-month-old cub, and they'll usually do that at the time of independence. Anywhere from 18 months to 2 years is typically when the young leopard will be named. Good question though, Billy Joe, and as my answer suggests, it's slightly complicated arrangements and can vary from area to area. I'm just going to try and reposition the vehicle. He doesn't seem to be going anywhere, and we'll definitely be able to get a better view. I wonder what it is that he's heard. It could be that he was waiting at this termite mound with the knowledge that there could be something that lives inside of it. Now, as Andrew zooms out, you'll notice there's a large patch of sand that's been well trodden, and I think to the right of that sand is an entrance hole potentially into this termite mound, and it could be warthog that live in there. Male leopard will often lie and wait on top of termite mounds or next to them for warthog to come running out. This specific leopard has also become a master of catching aardvark, which also live in burrows. During the day they're nocturnal, and I'm guessing that he could be waiting for somebody to come out of this hole, if in fact it is an active den site for warthog or something else. It could also be that he can hear something elsewhere, further away. But what you can all see is that he is listening intently, he is very focused, and I think it could be something in this termite mound. Morning, Costa in Greece, and thanks very much for sending your question through. Costa would like to know whether leopards will stay in the same area or if they move around and travel large distances. Now, typically how it works, Costa, is that male leopards, once they are sexually mature at around 5 years of age, will start to try and establish their own territory. And that territory, depending on the area, can range from about 5 square miles to 10 square miles roughly, but it does depend a lot on the area. In the Sabi Sands where we are here, a male leopard's territory will typically be around 3 to 4 square miles, but it does depend on the individual and how successful he is. Now within his territory, excuse me, there'll be several females potentially, again depending on how successful he is. And females will have smaller territories, 1 or 2 square miles, 3 square miles, depending again on the individual and on the area. Now within those territories, leopards will move around and explore every pathway, tree, termite mound. There are kind of areas where you may be more likely to find them, but there's no guarantees, and they do always keep us guessing, and that's why it's so difficult to find them, Costa. We can go for days without seeing leopard, not because they're not here, not because we don't know they're around, but simply because there are so many hiding places for them, and they are masters of camouflage and disappearing. Well, we were just chatting about the likelihood of there being some warthog in this burrow that he's waiting patiently at, and you wouldn't believe it, but James has found some warthogs. So while we wait here, why don't you head across to James, have a look at the warthog, and we'll be sure to let you know if anything happens here.
Dump and a pea. Welcome back to Jiga, everyone. You find us with a sounder of pigs, warthogs to be more specific, one of 2 pig species we get out here, and they are just grazing across this little sodic area, picking out the rhizomes, which are the nutrient dense and moist underparts of the grasses, and that's what they like to eat. See, that's I believe you've been having a good time with the leopard with Scott, but we just wanted to quickly show you these guys. That one that you're looking at there is a boar. You can see that from his 2 sets of warts quite nicely there on the front of his head. He's very suspicious of us, though. I'm just going to try and sneak forward. They are generally quite skittish. So let's just see if we can't get a slightly better view. One of them sat down like a dog. That's quite amusing to see. I'm not sure I've ever seen that before. So it's a sow in front, and you can compare the heads of the sow and the boar by the number of warts they have. Now that's the boar behind that ziziphus tree there. He thinks he's hiding, and he's got 2 sets of sort of, they're not really warts, but they're protuberances that come out behind his tusks, and they're supposed to, there we go, they're supposed to be for some form of facial defense, I think, when they're fighting over girls. See the little oxpeckers sitting on the sow's back? They're very suspicious of our intentions. There we go. Tails up. Testosterone-driven male is not being particularly brave in front of his family. In fact, he's being positively pathetic. He's just haired off at 100 miles an hour. There you go, the others followed closely by the oxpeckers. What a lot of people don't realize is that a boar warthog can weigh up to 100 kilograms. So that's 220 pounds. That's a pretty substantial animal. I mean, that's heavier than most human beings. and so they can do quite substantial damage to things like predators who might be after them. So in this area, it is unlikely that a female leopard, for example, would go for an adult warthog because they're quite a substantial threat. Big male leopards, yes, and especially young male leopards, they like to try their arm. But once a boar's got to his full size, there's not much that will take him, except maybe a private lion. Okay, we're going to turn around now. We did find some leopard tracks on this road, so we're just going to drive back along them. Let's see what we can see. Scott will stay with the leopard he's with, so he'll go back to him just now. You can see a big front coming in front of us there. You can see a cold front that's coming in from the east there, from the northeast, which is quite unusual. So I'm not sure why. That means it's coming in off Mozambique as opposed to from the Cape in the south. So that's quite interesting. But we can just feel a little touch of chill in the air, a bit of a cool breeze coming in front of that cloud bank there. But it has made the light just beautiful this morning. To know, welcome to this beautifully lit African morning. You'd like to know if warthogs like to live in termite mounds. The answer is yes. Normally, if they've been excavated by an aardvark or aardvark, it's always amusing to hear somebody from the northern hemisphere say aardvark. If they've been excavated by an aardvark where they've left a big hole, termites, at least warthogs, definitely like to go in there. So that's often where they will live, and they'll reverse in backwards so that if a predator sticks his nose in, they simply charge out and bash him on the face. So we're just following up. It looks like a young male leopard, and I'm told by my two colleagues, Scott and Brent, that there were two young male leopards that were in this area, and they haven't been seen for a month or so. And it's quite interesting to see, you know, a male leopard will stay in his mother's territory till he's about 2.5 years old, and then he'll start to roam. But they do often come back. They'll spend up to a month away, and then they'll come back and say hi, and then before disappearing off again. So it'd be quite nice to see one of these young males. I'm not sure you can get an impression, I keep going on about it, but how incredible the light is right now. It's just a stunning kind of yellowy, blue, golden color. It's wonderful. In this light, I might become speechless with joy. So, just giving that question we just had, there's a warthog hole there, or there's a hole there that. Is laughing because I've just bashed my knee and will be unable to walk for a week. So this hole here, I pointed out last night actually to some people, is where a warthog might live. Good question that. And this is precisely, they'll come in here and then they'll reverse in backwards, having investigated it first, because of course they may find something like a black mamba living in there, and it's not very nice to be bitten on the bottom by a black mamba when you're reversing into your burrow. So when you're walking, it's always, I told a little yarn last night about the time a friend of mine's guest was bashed by a warthog coming out of a hole like this. It's important to make sure that when you're walking in the bush and you walk past a hole like this, you make very sure that there are not fresh tracks of warthog there, because they'll burst out because they don't want to be cornered in the hole. Just going to look behind us quickly to see if there aren't some tracks of this leopard. There don't seem to be any tracks. So we're going to carry on down this little road and see what we can see. Sense of peace on a morning like this when the light is so perfect. I'll do a little checkup on the weather later. It's not impossible that we could have very late sort of winter or early winter rains, especially if it's coming off Mozambique. I found something here and I do not know what it is. Brent, any idea? It's some kind of gall or infection that the tree has got. This is a Combretum tree, probably a variable bush willow, Combretum calinum, and so this, I mean, it looks a bit like an insect would have created it, but it's not, it's wood. So it's possible that the tree has been infected by something and just developed a sort of cancerous or tumor or growth. Or it's possible that an insect has stung it and, you know, it's created this thing, rather like the insects the slender ant does with the thorns. But I don't see any entrance holes, and it's quite soft, sort of corky material. It's very interesting. Some sort of tree growth. But I couldn't tell you more than that, I'm afraid. On we go. Right, we're going to hand you back to Scott and the glorious male leopard he found, and we'll see you just now.
Welcome back, everyone, and Tingana is still waiting very patiently at the entrance to this warthog burrow. It is in fact a warthog burrow. We know that for a fact because just after you left us to go and look at James and the warthog, I spoke with Jason, one of the guides, and he said a warthog did come rocketing out of this burrow as Tingana walked around. So that would have been what he had heard, but the warthog managed to escape him. Now, That's not to say there aren't more warthog down in the burrow that he could be waiting for. There are also some impala making their characteristic rutting noise nearby that he also listens to, and I'm hoping he's going to decide to rather go and try and catch one of those impala, because if he waits here, he could wait for very long, and it wasn't long ago that he was seen waiting at the entrance to a aardvark burrow. I think that was with Brent for a portion of the time that he spent there. But he spent 24 hours in the same place, waiting patiently for the aardvark to leave, which it didn't, and he eventually gave up. Rose in California has just asked a very, very interesting question, and that is whether leopards will also experience adrenaline rushes just like humans do. And I'm almost certain that they do. Just like us as humans, adrenaline is a very critical function or feature that allows us to perform at abnormally high levels of intensity for short bursts of time, and that's to essentially save our lives. And it's no different to a leopard getting a fright and using that surge of adrenaline to boost it up a tree that much faster, or scramble away from any potential predators, and not only that, but also run after prey. So I certainly do think so, Rose, but I have not heard of any official studies on that, so I do stand to be corrected, but I find it highly unlikely that animals will not have adrenaline or something very similar to it, because just like us, they will also need that surge or boost of performance, either when hunting or even escaping predators, sorry. Now, I'm not entirely sure how much longer we can stay here for, because the radios aren't working, and therefore I'm not sure if there's pressure for other vehicles coming in to have a look at Tingana, which there very could well be. I'm going to stay a little bit longer though, and then hopefully we can head off and find something else, because as you can imagine, there's a lot of guests driving around in various vehicles that would all love to have a look at this beautiful leopard. And it's important for us to share sightings with all the vehicles, just like they've shared this with us. Well, morning Angie in Ohio, and thanks for sending your question through. Angie would like to know if there's been any interaction recorded between Tingana and Mvula. And for those of you who don't know, Mvula is the dominant male to the east of where we are here on Djuma. Here we're on Arathusa, which is west of Djuma. And not that I'm aware of, I haven't heard any solid updates where people have actually seen Tingana and Mvula interacting with one another. That's not to say it hasn't happened, and I'm almost certain they would have brushed paths and shoulders at certain stages, because their territories do essentially overlap ever so slightly on the fringes. They're not clear-cut pathways or fences like we have around our houses. There's often a few grey areas. Now, I'm not sure, though, sadly, whether Mvula has been actually seen interacting with Tingana and what would have happened in those interactions, but the amount of time we're spending out here, it's going to happen sometime. I've actually never seen male leopards interacting unless it's father and son. I've never seen two dominant males in the same sighting before. And that's having spent now 4 years in an area where leopard viewing is great. This area that we're in, the Sabi Sands, is one of the best for leopard viewing in Africa. And even still, there's certain things that I have yet to see. Well, it appears that he has really got comfortable here. And like I say, he could spend 24 hours here, which is not a problem. I would be happy to sit here for 24 hours, but the problem is that we do need to make space for other vehicles, and I think now would be a good time. It's not looking like anything could happen. Having said that, though, at any stage a warthog could come rocketing out of that hole and action could unfold, but I think we're going to move on. I'm going to answer one more question, and then we'll go out and see what else we can find. Well, morning, Brenda in Virginia. Thanks for sending your question through. Brenda would like to know whether this is the father of Shadow's cub, Sindile. And yes, in all likelihood, he is the father, or he simply thinks he's the father. If he wasn't under the impression that he was the father, he would have killed that cub and therefore allowed himself the opportunity to get his genes into his territory, which is typically how it works. Now, it is in all likelihood that it is Tingana who is the father, but it's not uncommon for leopardess to mate with several males and give them the false sense of fathership, which therefore increases the cub's chances of survival, as it doesn't matter which dominant male comes across them. If they all think they're the father, then everyone's happy, and leopardess are known to do that. Anyway, we are going to move on now. It's been a great sighting, and like I say, it's so important for us to maintain good relationships with the other guides in the area and let everyone have a chance of coming to have a look. So we're going to see what else we can find, and hopefully it won't take too long before we do find something. Really been so fortunate with the big cat sightings over the last few days.